There you go. All right, so Tony, our technical director, will be hosting, and we have a special guest, Craig Brown, who is former coach of the Scottish national team, took Scotland to a World Cup back in '98, I believe. And he was also, he did a session for the NSCAC, I would say, was it maybe 20 years ago in Scarborough, Ontario, on the field. And too bad we didn't have cameras and film all that stuff back then. But I did a great job, and we're absolutely delighted to have you, Craig. And Tony, if you'd like to take over.
Yeah, John. Yeah, Craig and I were having a short discussion before. I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of Behind the Bench with the legendary coach or manager of the Scottish football team, Craig Brown. Craig, welcome to our Behind the Bench webinar.
Thank you very much. It's a delight to be back with the Canadian folk. And as you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it on any occasion I was over there. And I remember being in Oakville.
Oakville, yeah.
I had a good session there 2 years in a row. And of course, we came with the Scottish national team and we played in Toronto. So, you know, it's a favourite spot of mine.
Well, hopefully we'll have you back in here soon. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll plan on that. So, Craig, just so that you know, we have many coaches that have joined us from around the world, from the Czech Republic, from Jamaica, from the US, of course, Spain, Portugal, South Africa. So you have a good audience of a worldwide audience. And so they don't want to listen to me anymore. They want to listen to you, and you'll be talking today about the defending and attacking styles of play.
Yes, well, exactly what I wish to do is this.
Yes.
To select my favourite formation. You know, there are so many formations apparent nowadays, and every country's sometimes not even using the same one. And I have a great preference for the 3-5-2 formation. And although it's perhaps a little, well, can we say obsolete maybe now, and the 4-4-2 is very obsolete. You're antiquated if you're using the 4-4-2, according to the people that know their game of football. But what I'd like to do is to do examples of how you operate in a 3-5-2, and hopefully for the coaches with me listening to get some training ideas so that you could implement your attacking moves and your defensive moves within the system. And the diagram or two here, which you can have a look at, and you'll see what we're doing. We can find the diagram.
Right, Johnny's disabled the sharing of the screen. Can we share the screen, please? Is that possible?
John, can you connect Craig to the screen from where you are? Can you give him? Yeah.
I think
share screen.
Multiple participants can share. It says here now. You wanna?
Okay, I'll try that again.
John, if you go and share screen, I think you.
I think it's you're the host now, Tony. You're the main host. Maybe you got to do it. On the bottom it says share screen.
No, but John, you need to do that from Scotland. You need to share screen. You need to click on the button that says share screen, and then whatever you have will be.
We've got it now. We're on it.
There we go.
There you go. There it is. You got it. You got it.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh no, no worries. No worries.
We're having a late kickoff.
Perfect.
Anyway, I'll just go quickly through the screen here, and I don't think I should be bothering giving you all that, but that's the background. And the most important things, I think, if you look at that page, which was really my career in coaching, that I was 15 years with the Scottish FA, and 8 of them as head coach and 7 as the assistant. And I was assistant to 2 outstanding coaches, Sir Alec Ferguson, I was assistant to him, and to Andy Roxburgh. And then eventually I got the job as the national team manager, having been with the under-21 team for 7 years. I was then promoted to the national team. Now, the 3-5-2 system that I wish to discuss in a little more detail emanated from a game against Germany. Now, the German teams at that time were the best teams in Europe. They were winning the Champions League. The German national team won Euro 96, and Bertie Volz was the coach.
Yes.
And I picked Bertie's brains a lot when we had to play them in a European Championship game at under 21. And he was very, very forthcoming. He didn't hide anything. And he told me how they operated the 3-5-2. And that's what I'd like to tell your coaches this evening, how they operated it. And of course, it was hugely successful long before that. That not only did Germany use it, but Argentina won it in 1986, the World Cup,
Yes.
using the 3-5-2 formation. So there's no prescription, as you see on that screen, there's no prescription for success. No one formula is going to make you a world champion or win you football matches. But as I say, the traditional one that we've always been thinking of is 4-4-2. And it's not fashionable now. If you're using 4-4-2 now, you're old man. You're yesterday's man. And people shake their head but I've said it becomes the default system, because what happens? You've used another system. You use 4-3-3. You've used 4-2-3-1. You've used the 3-5-2, and you're down at half time. What do? You go into your dressing room and you go back to 4-4-2. This is what I see at the top level, particularly in the English Premier League. And these guys who are very, very well-renowned and highly paid coaches, they have no hesitation in going back to the 4-4-2 if things aren't going well for them. But what I'm trying to do is this. I assume that most of you know how to operate the 4-4-2, and I will try and indicate how to operate the 3-5-2. Now, the 3-5-2 won Germany the European Championship. You see that? Dortmund won the Champions League, and they were Bundesliga champions 8 times. Argentina won the World Cup, as I said, and the man that introduced the 3-5-2 system was Carlos Bilardo, and he's the man that everyone acknowledges as the one who decided on that system. And what I'd like to do is to have let you and your coaches have a look at the system, just in an overview, and then I'll go through the system and talk about defending first and then attacking. That's my favourite system. Why is it my favourite system? I was lucky with Scotland to be in the FIFA World Youth Cup final, the World Cup final against Saudi Arabia. And what took us there was a very well-organised, we think, team playing 3-5-2. Then the under-20 quarter-final against West Germany and Chile. Again, we were using that system. And I was in the under-21 semi-final with the under-21 team against Sweden. So these are 3 high-profile tournaments. And on each occasion, the Scottish team that I had to take charge of played 3-5-2, and I think we played it pretty well enough to be well positioned in each of the prestigious tournaments. And I think finally, the last couple of things I've said here is to qualify for Euro 96, and you can imagine if you're in Scotland and Euro 96 is in England, the threat on the manager is quite incredible. You know, and I know the chief executive said to me, if we don't qualify, you're sacked, because it's next door. And we've got to get down to England to play in Euro 96. So Ernie Walker, the late Ernie Walker was his name, and he didn't beat about the bush. He says, you've got to get there or you're off, you're sacked. Now, as I say in that sheet there, that page, we played 10 games to qualify. And using the system that I'm going to talk about, we lost only 3 goals, which I think was quite a good achievement. Then, having managed to qualify for the European Championship, and we get out of the group, and we had 3 games to play, and in the 3 games we lost only 2 goals. So if you add it together, that's 12 games and 5 goals conceded. So therefore, there is no question in my mind that the 3-5-2 is a very efficient defensive operation. Now, qualification for the World Cup 98, having qualified for Euro 96, again, I was told, listen, the World Cup's in France, and it's so close to Scotland, and every Scottish supporter wants to go on holiday to France and they want to go to the World Cup. You better get us there. So I was under threat again. And again, in the 10 qualifying games, quite coincidentally, we lost only 3 goals. So I genuinely think that I don't need to justify the 3-5-2 system. Now, for the coaches there, for you watching it, there it's just laid out on the pitch, and you can see that quite clearly the 5 have not to be in a straight line across the middle, and neither would the front 2 be up square with each other. You'll have one slightly ahead of the other, and there'll be one tucking in maybe just in behind, so that he can operate in the hole behind the mainline striker. Now, with the others, the ones who are doing the ones who are in the midfield, you can operate with a sitting midfield player. This one here, he can sit, or you can have 2 sitting players and he can chase the game and be up behind the front. Right. But the key to my understanding, and I'll give you it from a very fine coach for Borussia Dortmund, Hisfeld was the coach of Borussia Dortmund when they won the Champions League. And we were lucky in Scotland, we had a player who played for Hisfeld, and that was Paul Lambert. And I said to Paul Lambert, how does he operate the system? And he said, you know, the wide players, the wide ones, and they call them wing backs, I think, nowadays, these wing backs were not allowed to go into the front third. They had to do 2/3 of the pitch, because their main responsibility was defend and make sure you were never caught out defensively. Now, on the other side as well, they were not allowed to go into the front third. And Lambert told me that was Hisfeld's specific instruction. Up to there and no further than that. Now, who makes the width then? And the man that makes the width is this man here who runs out there ahead of the ball, right? Impossible to pick up if he does it and times it well. Or this one here goes that way, and he's supported by the wing back behind him. And then, of course, they try to deliver as soon as possible while the opposition is facing their own goal. Try and get up that side, or the left side, deliver in there for these 2 guys. And of course, these supporting midfield players are there because they've got a security at the back. They've got a 3rd central midfield player in front of the back 3. So if I could, just say to you, that is the basic outline of how the 3-5-2 was to operate. Now, here's a question, how do we operate the back 3? How do we operate? Now, the German system is man for man against 2 strikers and 1 free defender. Now, the Scottish psyche starts to discipline themselves to man for man is sometimes quite difficult. So we adopted a zonal back 3, and they all played a back 4 at their club, the guys I'm talking about here. Colin Calderwood was at Tottenham. He was a zonal right-sided back. Colin Henry was at Blackburn Rovers, who won the championship in England, and he was a central one. And the left one was the Celtic left full back. I'm just trying to remember. Tom Boyd. Tom Boyd was
number 3.
Tom Boyd was number 3. So you've got Collingwood, Henry, and Boyd, and they were unbeatable, and they had a magnificent understanding. And the idea was, if the ball was played forward to a striker or to one of the boys in the inside position, the nearest one of the 3 went very tight to tackle him, and the other 2 stayed square behind, so that they could use the offside facility if they wanted. So that if the ball's played here, this defender here, who would be Tommy Boyd, would go right close to him, and these 2 would square off at the edge of the box. And I've got to say, I told you, we only conceded 3 goals in 10 qualifying games, and then 2 goals in 3 games. Now, the 3 games at Euro 96 are a much higher level. So it's, I think, a good achievement defensively. Now, here's the next question that people ask you about this system. Who takes the throw-ins in your own half? Well, that's a strange question, but I think an important one. And again, listening to Paul Lambert talking about his team at Borussia Dortmund, the centre back takes the throw in. And that surprised me, but we worked it very, very well. The wide player here, he gets pushed up further up the line. He does not take, you would think he'll take the throw in. Centre back comes out and takes it. And the throw in that's forbidden, and I would always forbid it, is the high throw down the line, because it never works if you watch it. Now, this guy here, the wide player, start in there about 2 yards in, and the throw from here, from the right back, or the right centre back, is a torpedo type throw, along swiftly. And this wide player, the wing back or whatever you call, he spins in and he's away. Or alternatively, it goes to the centre back there, and out the other side. Now, I've got to say to you that I was watching Denmark were playing here in Scotland a few months ago, and I watched them play with great interest. And of course, they were I think at that time they were rated about number 2 in the world. And they came to Glasgow, to Hampden, and you know that every throw in, say there's a left back here, or the Danish left back taking a throw in up there, every throw in went back, and it came back to the centre back, and he put it to the middle one there, and they were out the other side. The ball was transferred so quickly that it was hard to handle. And I'll tell you, they didn't, in their own half and in the first 20 yards of the opposing half, they didn't try to put a thought forward. They played it back to ensure that they kept possession. And I think obviously you want to keep possession from your throw-in. Now I'm going on and on here. The other coaching points that I'll rattle through quite quickly, and please, Tony, stop me if you want to interrupt and ask me something.
No, no. Well, I just want to confirm what you said before about a lot of teams now are playing with 3 at the back. You know, a 3-4-3, 3-5-2, a 5-3-2. But a lot of them are mainly in the center. They're playing with 3 at the back. But there is always the traditionalists, if you want to call them like that. You know, somebody like Guardiola, 4-3-3 all the time, right? Klopp, you know, he plays with 4 at the back, whether it's a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. So a lot of the coaches, they go to what, you know, they feel more comfortable with.
That's what I said.
4 at the back, yeah, 4 at the back forever, you know. Very few will, you know, will take the risk of changing things. Sometimes you have to, but most of them, you know, will try to stay true to their, you know, to their game plans all the time.
Yes. Well, I looked at the technical report from back. That was the 2014 World Cup, and quite a small minority of teams were using the 3-5-2, but they were doing it very effectively. Then the next World Cup, 4 years ago, England played 3 at the back, and they modified the middle. Sometimes it was 5, sometimes it was 4, and then another 3. So sometimes it was 3-4-3. And Gus Hiddink, the German renowned coach, his house style of play was 3-4-3. Now, you have a problem, I think, if you're playing our system, the 3-5-2 system. You've got a problem if the opposing team is shaping up 4-4-2, because you've only got one man in the wide position, your wing back.
Right.
And they've got 2. They've got their full back and their wide midfield player. So we can look at it there, and you can see it. Now look at that. He's quite isolated in the system, and over on this side he's isolated. But if, and this is the secret that I was given by Bertie Volz, would you believe? He said, when you lose possession of the ball, your 2 strikers do nothing other than go and mark the fullbacks. And you leave, now I know it's happening quite regularly now, you're playing out from the back, but normally, and in those days, and I think still today it's true, that the centre-back's delivery is usually less good than the full-back's delivery. Right. And furthermore, he's in a central area which is choked with defensive provision. So what we do is, as soon as we lose the ball and say their goalkeeper gets it, or our 2 strikers split there, one there, and they pick up the potential overlapping fullback. And without hesitation, I mean, and even the lad used to be saying, I'm doing this in my sleep. I'm going to take a fullback in my sleep because you're insisting. I said, yeah, I'm insisting. And they did it very, very effectively. And it prevented a 2-against-1 on the side there.
The outside, yeah. So you're forcing them to go through the middle where there are more players. There's less space in the middle than there is on the outside, obviously.
So I'm still talking about really defending here. So I've got there the strikers defend wide.
Yep.
Another thing that we forbid, and I would forbid it in any system, is a square pass.
Square balls, yeah.
Now, if the pass goes square and it's intercepted, both the passer and the receiver are beaten.
Yes.
It's a criminal pass, and I'm not taking any credit for telling you this, but I'm giving the credit to Brian Clough's book years ago. And Brian Clough used to fine his players in training if they gave a square pass. It was forbidden. And when you think logically, I think he demonstrated it once at the start of the season. I spoke to one of his players, and he said to me, he demonstrated it once what would happen if there was an interception. And he says, I'm not demonstrating that again. He fined them in training if they gave a square pass. So obviously they didn't. And so even to say to top class players, as I was privileged to work with, you could say to them, look, it's not on, and they understood why, and they didn't ever attempt a square pass. So the other, I think, a very, very interesting thing is the next heading I've got, underweighted passes. Now, I was manager of a semi-pro team in Glasgow, Clyde Football Club, and we sold a player to Aberdeen, and they became the leading scorer in Scotland. Aberdeen sold him to Tottenham Hotspur. He became the leading scorer in England. Tottenham Hotspur sold him to Barcelona, and he became the leading scorer in the Spanish league. Now, the boy was called Steve Archibald. So he comes back to see me, to Clyde, where he started his career, and I'm saying to him, what have you learned in Barcelona? And the one thing that they emphasise there, and I watched them when they're playing, two things. Well, the one thing that he learned particularly was that the passes to the striker have to be underweighted. You don't hit, we used to say in Scotland, when we're going to hit good firm passes. Steve Archibald said no. And he said the passes are laid up soft so that the receiving player doesn't have to control it. He can play it back, he can turn with it, he can play it first time right or left. And he said the man that was the master of the underweighted pass was Ardiles. And he says, Ardiles would pass it up to me, and I would be between the centre back and the full back, and a back four. And he says, the only time he overweighted it was if it was a through pass. And I was spinning onto it. So now I was saying to quite a number of the coaches here in Scotland, the underweighted pass, and Gary McAllister said, we're doing that at Liverpool, and we do it naturally. And it's really encouraged. That was a way back when Kenny Dalglish was the manager, and Gary was the coach there for a while before he came to work at Rangers with Gerrard. But so I think underweighted passes make it easy for the receiving player, right? And you emphasise to your team, don't overhit it, don't have to make them control it. The other one is eliminate a key opponent or the supplier. When you're playing against, and we were playing you mentioned the World Cup.
Yeah.
And when we were playing against Brazil, their big star player was the other Ronaldo, the one.
Yeah, the real Ronaldo, right?
You remember him? Well, I was worried about him. So I phoned his former coach, Sir Bobby Robson. And I phoned Bobby Robson, and I said, and he couldn't have been kinder. I said, you had, he says, it's the best striker I've ever had. He said, by a mile. I've had Carreco, I've had Lineker, I've had good strikers. I've never had a striker like this guy, Ronaldo. I said, well, how do we stop him? He says, you don't. I said, oh, thanks, Bobby. He said, no, you don't stop him. He said, if you play the ball to him and he's in a standing start, he'll leave any defender for dead. And well, how do we stop him? He said, you analyse the Brazilian games and look who gives them the ball, where he gets them the supply, the most regular supply. Now, that was very good advice, because we did that. I looked at 9 games they played, Brazil. I saw 2. I went to see them in the USA before the World Cup in '98, and I saw them in the flesh. And we analysed another 7 games, and yet most of his passes from Cafu, the right back. So the job that Bobby Robson told me is, don't bother marking. You'll never handle Romario. Mark the supplier. And the supplier was, so we did fairly effectively manage to, of course he's a good player, he had a good game, but he wasn't his normal dominant self, because he wasn't getting a supply. And we had a boy, Christian Daly, who played at, I think at the time at West Ham, and Daly handled very well the boy Cafu and prevented him getting the.
Yeah, and Craig, when you played Brazil in France, right? When you played Brazil in France, it was 1-1 until an own goal, really.
An own goal, yeah. Yeah, I think we were a bit unfortunate in that game. Yeah. But you know, you're always looking for a hard luck story. But one of the reasons we were fortunate to keep in the game was the fact that Ronaldo didn't feature much in the match, and that was because he wasn't getting any passes from his usual source, Cafu. And that was Sir Bobby Robson telling me what to do. And as you know, I think as a coach, you're not too ashamed to ask anyone with experience and knowledge that you respect for help. And most people are more than willing to give you help. That's my experience. And anyway, I said eliminate the key moment. That's in the sheet there. We're halfway down. And the next heading is quite important. Restrict the wing-back's forward movement. I showed you that on the diagram. Yeah. The wing-back doesn't do the full length of the pitch. Now, you're going to say to me, Klopp does it he does it with his full-backs at Liverpool. I say, yeah, that's fine. And that's his philosophy. And he's got full-backs who can do that and get back. You know, the boy Robertson, for example, the Scotch boy, is wonderful. And he's up and down that left side. Absolutely no problem. But I think for an ordinary player and an ordinary team playing in the system, 3-5-2 system, you don't want your full-backs going careering forward recklessly. Now I'm looking at, so what I've said there, restrict the wing-backs forward movement. You play the ball forward and support. You don't go ahead of the ball. The inner midfield player in your 5, he can go ahead. Now we're talking about defending corner kicks. And I'm going to tell you, I see, and I go to games, and I see, why not leave somebody up for the counter-attack? Well, I was privileged to work with Alec Ferguson, Sir Alec, and Alec would kill you if you left somebody up at a corner, because he insisted, and he's right. Well, he's right in everything. I think he was the best manager on the planet, obviously, and 13 championships in England and European champion, and winning a European championship with Aberdeen. So if Alec Ferguson says it, I just believe it, and I don't dispute anything at all that he says. So when you're defending a corner, the instructions are everyone is back. Everyone is back in your own penalty box. And Alec's mantra was, he said that a busy penalty box favours the defender. An empty penalty box, if you leave 2 up, for example, and you've got space in that box, favours the attackers. And I think it was, he's proved it time and time again with his Manchester United team. And when I was privileged to be in the bench when he was manager of the Scottish team, and the lads knew, everybody back. And the folks said, what about the counter-attack? Alec, listen, he says, you can counter-attack from the edge of your own box. I bring Cantona back to the edge of the box. I bring Dwight York back to the edge of the box. And when Big Schmeichel caught the ball, they took off on the run. And he said, Schmeichel could throw it in their path, or the path of one of them, and they were. And he says, we counter-attack far more effectively from the edge of our own box than we would have done the halfway line, where they would have been marked by defenders. So, I mean, I don't need to emphasise how excellent Sir Alec was, but that was one of the many things I think I learned from him, that all back at corners, you man mark their key men, and the rest of the marking is zonal. And you must have someone on the back post, not the front post, the back. That was that's Alex. Now, there's no prescription for defending a corner, but if the players know what you want, then you want a guy to be at the front of the goal to, if a driven balls come in, such as I saw last night, Liverpool scored the one against Glasgow Rangers that was driven at the front post. Now, there was no one there. It should have been the Rangers captain who was there, but he wasn't there, and they got an equaliser, Liverpool, from the driven ball. Now, if the driven ball goes over the head of the man who's there to stop it, he becomes the back post man. He goes onto the post. So that's the new back post is the one, if the ball goes over, it's a new back post, which was originally the nearer one. So, I hope I'm making sense here, what I'm trying to explain. So all back, corners for a variety, including short corners. Now, again, Archibald told me, we never take a corner at Barcelona. We never take an orthodox corner. Every corner's short. We're told in Barcelona, when you get a corner, it's just possession. You've got the possession. So it's usually 2 out. And they've got various options there. They've practiced various clever options, but they never were encouraged at all to just cross it in willy-nilly. Free kicks for practice required, well, obviously. And I'll give you Alec Ferguson again. I liked this when we were in Mexico at the World Cup. That Alec was in charge. And he's far more democratic than you folks would think. They think Alec will go in and tell them what to do. No, he's very, very laid back and democratic. And he talks. No, we're not getting hairdryer stuff. I never heard it. And there was 10 games with him. But what I heard was he would be laid back and he'd say, any of you get a good free kick at your club that we can try against Denmark? That was in the first game in Mexico. So the lads were sitting. And another thing, talking about lads are sitting, Alec Ferguson loved to do a team meeting outside in the grass. Sit in the grass, guys. And he sat in a couple of footballs or something, or something he could find to sit. Would take him a wee bit. But he put them in a football environment, which was outside. And because he made sure there was nothing behind them that they would be looking at. And he did his team meetings out in the grass, particularly in the good weather. Obviously, he was there in Mexico. So, any of you get a good free kick, and Stevie Nicol says, we won at Liverpool, boss. And Alex says, well, even though it's Liverpool, we'll listen to it. He was joking with him. So he says, I'll tell you what we do. He says, Kevin Keegan goes on the ball. Sorry, I go on the ball, and Kevin Keegan's ready to shoot. My job is to flick it up in the air. And Kevin Keegan volleys it over the wall.
Yes.
It's a good free kick we've got. And Alex says, that's a good idea. If we get a free kick tomorrow in the game, well, you'll flick it up. You can do that, Stevie. And here's another thing. So clever as Alec Ferguson, he says that ball has got to travel its circumference. So when you're flicking up, make sure it's an obvious spin on it. So the referee doesn't accuse you of just flicking up and it doesn't go its circumference. So he told them that. And he also said to who's going to the team, who's going to take the shot? Well, Gordon Strachan says, I'll shoot, boss. Well, Gordon, that's brilliant. Stevie will flick it up and you'll shoot it. So that was agreed. So, of course, the next day, sitting beside Alec, and we get a free kick midway in the first half. And it's just outside the box, the penalty. Here we go, this is great. And I'm nudging him. So, as arranged, on the ball goes Stevie Nicol, and his foot's in below it, and he flicks it up in the air, and wee Gordon hit it with the middle of his shin, and it hardly reached the wall. It just bubbled out. Well, Alec went off his... And I says, Alec, they never practiced it. He says, at their level, they shouldn't have needed to practice that. I mean, it shows you that the best manager on the planet can make a mess of a free kick if the players don't switch on. So, practice required. I've said that in the fourth one from the bottom. Defending free kicks. This is a big issue. And obviously, you want your wall to be strong. And the things you want the wall to do is maybe jump. It's up to you. And I see now there are teams where there's a guy lying below the wall, so that if they jump and it goes underneath, it gets blocked. The other interesting thing is this: the sloping of the wall is important. So that the tallest player should be at the outside of the post, and the smallest player in the wall should be in the middle of the goal. So that you've got a sloping wall, and obviously if it goes over the middle of the wall, the keeper should get it. He's got time to see it over the smallest or the smaller player. So again, there's no formula for that, but I think your players have got to know exactly what you want, and they've got they're all positioned so that you've got a sloping wall. And I tell you, this is another Alec Ferguson.
Craig, I just wanted to ask you a question about that, about set plays, corners, and free kicks. How much time do you spend on that? I mean, when you're coaching the national team or any team?
See, quite a lot. In actual fact, I'll tell you why. We can spend quite a lot of time on it for two reasons. One, it's not energy sapping. Right. We only get a national team, and I'm not talking about World Cup, but for a normal international, you've got them for 3 days maximum. Now, and they've been playing on Saturday. You get them on Monday. Now, if you were to work them hard, and the edge would be off by the time Wednesday came, by the time the match came. But when you can walk them about and get this sorted, and that's why I was insistent in throw-ins. I knew where every throw-in should go, and I knew where every free kick and corner should go, and that was because we were quite insistent on, and we had excellent audio-visual service. We had a video operator, and I would say to him, Brian, we need all the throw-ins that Brazil have taken in the last 3 games, and he would put that into about 7 or 8 minutes. And we would watch them and we'd see what they do with it. Now, there's two things about a throw-in. One, you're either giving a throw-in to the player or you're throwing it for the player. Now, if it's for the player, that means you're throwing it past him so he runs onto it, up the line, for example. If it's to the player, the instruction that to the player receiving it is he's got to get it in his instep. It's not to hit the ground. If you throw the ball to a player and it hits the ground, and I'm talking about Scottish grounds here, maybe not Canadian, but muddy, bumpy, uneven surfaces. So the rule we have, well, I had anyway, was that the throw-in must be able to be controlled in the instep. It doesn't get hit in the ground, because that's a variable. The ground will. Now, the other one I really like is the one down the line, and the guy that introduced me to that was USA. Dare I say, USA international player that I was privileged to have when I was manager at Preston North End. And he was a guy called Eddie Lewis, who went to England. He played at Fulham, and then he came to Preston North End. And Eddie said that his instructions: wide on the left, you leave a couple of yards for the ball between himself and the line, and the fullback had to throw the ball into that space. And Eddie blocked the defender and peeled off, and he was magnificent at it. And it's a certainty to get out of a defensive situation rather than a big, looping high one down the line. So the other couple of things there I've said, defending the free kicks, the wall sloping, the wall jumping. It's up to you whether you want it to jump or not. And I would consult your goalkeeping coach and your goalkeeper to make sure they're happy about it. But the other thing I've written there again, I'll not mention Alec Ferguson again, but when you went to a game at Manchester, or you went to see him with the Scottish team, the other team was out waiting on Manchester United, and at half-time in particular, they go out quite close. Nowadays, anyway, they go out together at the beginning, and they've got to go out at the beginning. But he had this phrase: they can wait on us. We're not going out there and waiting on them. And it's just it's a small thing. Now, if every coach had the same attitude, the teams would never appear on the pitch. But so, and I've done it all my time with whatever team I've been coaching. I said, let them go out. And then the referee will come, right, gentlemen, out you get. I said, are they out yet? They say, they're on their way. Well, I said, let me know when they're out. And it's just a wee psychological thing, I think. And so is the operation of the ball boys. Now, I think you all know if you're behind you want the ball boys to be hurrying. And if you're ahead, you want the ball boys to be fumbling the ball. You've got to be very careful when you tell them that, because they go home and tell their father, he said I was to take my time and not give the ball back in a hurry. So I think that's a questionable one, because it's liable to be, the youngsters are quite innocent. And
Sometimes the ball boys, they disappear. You know, if you're up 1-0 or down 1-0.
Exactly. That's what I think, Tony.
Yeah,
I'm agreeing totally with that. The other thing, I loved this when I went to Aberdeen to be the manager for 10 years ago, and I went into the ball boys room. And I have a thing about the players, they should thank the ball boy for the ball. And they thank him by saying thanks, son, or by giving him an acknowledgement by hand. If it's a big crowd and he's a bit away, when he gets the ball, he waves and acknowledges it. So I went into the ball boys, Aberdeen, I said, have a seat, guys. They all sat down. I said, can I ask you something? Does any Aberdeen player thank you for the ball? And there was a silence. I said, surely, come on, there must be one. And this wee boy says, yes. I says, who? He says, Jim Leighton. No, Jim Leighton was the goalkeeper. He says, right. Jim Leighton. And this cheeky wee boy says, is that when you're picking the ball out the net for him? I said, the ball doesn't go into a net. So, you know, it sometimes backfires on you. But these are small bits and pieces that, and I feel strongly a throw-in should be comfortable possession, and it shouldn't go down the line. Now, here's a simple code, and you probably know it, and I might be insulting you, but if you're holding the ball in your right hand before you put it above your head, it's going down the right hand side. If you hold it in your left hand before it goes over your head, it's going in to the left side of the pitch.
Okay.
Staying on the right back and taking the throw. Now that's it, going down the line to the wide right player. If I put it in my left hand and then over there, it's going into the midfield player, and it's not allowed to bounce before he gets it in his instep. So, I mean, I think you can tell a lot about coaches and about teams when you look at throw-ins, because some are immaculate and you can see how well rehearsed they are, and others are just, it's a free-for-all. So when I say simple direction code, the direction code is the hand you hold it in before you put it above your head. And
if I could just jump in for a second.
Sorry?
Can I just jump in for a second?
Oh, of course, Johnny. Yeah, of course.
First of all, it's just a couple of weeks ago, former national coach Benito Floro talked about, his son actually talked about the importance of the throw-ins, and they spent a lot of time. But you're right, a lot of coaches don't. But while we're here, if anyone has a question, please enter it in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll see if Craig can answer it. All right, keep going.
Yeah, no, well, I think very often, in my opinion, I go to games all the time, and I think throw-ins are indicative of preparation or lack of preparation, because a throw-in should be comfortable possession. It should be, and there should be no doubt about whether or not you're going to keep possession from a throw. And as I said, the Danish team threw it back, and it went across the back to the other side of the pitch and out, and it was a brilliant slick move done repeatedly. So you would think the opposition would quickly click onto it, but they didn't, and the opposition, unfortunately, was our team. But so comfortable possession, I've said on that printout you've got just now, not down the line. The simple code is, it's like a corner kick, you might bounce it once, and that means you want it back. You're throwing it, you want it back. I might hold it in that hand, but anyway. And I read that quote on Twitter there, a guy called Sturgeon, whom I don't know. He said, pissing about with the ball, 6-yard box must be the worst tactical innovation in the history of football. I think he's right, But, playing out from the back is a current fad. And it is a fad. And I looked up fad in the dictionary, and it says a craze that is short-lived. But I think this will continue, this playing out from the back, because this is the way they're all doing it. And if the players are good enough and the pitches are good enough, it's the way to play. And the same, pressing. If pressing is well taught and coordinated, it's also very, very effective. Now, can I move quickly? And I'll promise you quickly, and I'll show you the training game.
Whatever you like.
Only if I'm a coach and I'm hearing this guy talking, I want to go away with something I can use. You know, and I was very privileged. Anytime I came to North America and I came to Canada or USA, and I went anywhere to a course or to a convention, I always went back to Scotland with something I can use. And so therefore, if I'm asked to do a talk as I'm doing this now, I would like to think that your coaches could use this game to practice. It doesn't need to be the 3-5-2, but any system. Now, if you look at it there, and we'll start with the orange circles at the back there. These orange circles are 3, 1, 2, 3, right? There's your 5. They're in white.
Yep.
There's your 2. So that's a team, right? Now, when we're going in the other direction, here's a 3 of these are yellow. 1, 2, 3, and there's your 5. So that's your 3, and there's your front 2.
Okay.
So we've got a game where we've got 15 players out there, and 5 of them are in the orange, and 5 of them are in yellow, and 5 of them in white. And the white play with both sides. They play for both teams. And I think it's a brilliant game that enables you to coach everything you want in this system. Obviously, there's a goalkeeper and either goal. Now, the pitch is 70 yards. It's too much asking them to do the full size pitch. But you might want to if you want to get some extra running in from them. So what we do is this. The goalkeeper will deliver. There's a ball. He'll deliver it to one of the back 3. And he's got the whole midfield to play with or to pass it to. So he passes it to one of the whites if he wishes, or he misses the white right up to the striker and it's laid back to a white. So you can understand with the overload, with you having, you know, you've got 10, the yellow and the white, and they're playing against the orange, and there's only 5 orange, so it's 10 against 5 that way. Now, if obviously you get a shot and goal, or if there's a save or whatever, the game restarts at this end, and the ball comes out here to the orange guys, and they play with each other. And within that system, you can coach so many things. And eventually it gets to a striker, he has a shot for goal. Now, if a defender wins it, or if a midfield player wins it, initially, what I say in this game is, if you win it, you turn it and you play it back to the goalkeeper. And it restarts from your own goalkeeper. And I hope it's making sense what I'm saying just now.
Yeah. And you can do that with any system, Craig, right? 4-3-3, 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, you can do it. It would be a 10 against 6 if it was a 4-4-2.
Right.
The very same principle that your middle ones, your middle 4 play with both teams, right? But in this system, it's great because we're wanting to perfect this. Now, things like we might say to this goalkeeper, launch a few high ones down into the penalty box there.
Right.
And then we've got a realistic situation where your 3 defenders, one of them's got to go for it, and the other 2 have got to get into a square position behind to protect. And, you know, you can stop and start and you can do everything in that setup. And I'm not it's quite original, but I'm not saying to this world chattering that game. But every time I had the national team, and these guys are playing at big clubs, and they're very good coaches, they loved playing this 3-5-2 game. And it was the 5 men in the middle going both directions. And it meant that you got to get guaranteeing an attack. If the orange team's going up here and they're using the white and they're using their 2 strikers, it's a certainty they're getting an attack. Right, we're going the other way now. Now it's the yellow team using the white men and with yellow strikers, another guaranteed attack. Terrific. And then you can stop as the coach and you can say, we'll have a throw in here, we'll have a free kick there, and you can operate anything you want to coach within the system.
Within the system, yeah. I mean, yeah, good game.
Sorry, I've pressed the wrong button there just now. But anyway, this is the other game. There are 2 games, and obviously you've got that. We leave these games with you. We call this game the wingers game. And what we've got is 3 against 2 in a double penalty box. So there's your 3 yellows, and there's your 2 strikers. So that's your 5. And they're playing against the orange 5 in a double penalty box area. And on the side, there's a winger in orange and a winger in yellow, and the same on the other side. And these wingers are only allowed 1 touch if it's played out. So I'll give you an example there. The goalkeeper feeds it out to the right back here, or the right centre back. Now he plays it out to the wide position. This guy has got no opposition, but he's only allowed 1 touch, and he goes to it. And you've got your 2 strikers, and you've got one making a front post and one coming round the back. And you can do that as often as you like. We had a very, very fine manager in Scotland for years, and his boys were thrilled to do that. They had 2 boys. They had Paul Sturrock and Davy Dodds, and his name was Jim McLean at Dundee United. And every morning they played this game called the Wingers game. And Jim was intolerant of anything that wasn't first class. And the delivery from the wide position, the pass out to the winger so that he could play it without taking a touch, everything. And so within that system, you can teach whatever you want. Again, it's a smaller version of the big 70-yard pitch that I showed earlier. Double penalty box size, yes, 3 against 2 in each half. And the coaching points, start from the goalkeeper and encourage early use of the wingers and a quick delivery in from the side, so that you're not delaying the delivery. And the fact that he's to do it 1 touch. Now, initially, you would not say 1 touch. You'd give him free amount of touches, then 2 touches, then 1 touch. Well, that went too quickly to the 1 touch. But so that is called, well, we call it the Wingers game. And if I'm a coach coming and I want to get a new or a functional practice, I think, you've got one there that I think it's easy to. Here it's on the pitch. It's not quite so good there with the photographs, not all that good. But we're talking about, here's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yellows. I'm looking. And then there's 2, 3, 4, 5. And out in the side are the 1 touch ones, the ones that are only allowed 1 touch to play it in. It's not a very good illustration, I'm sorry, but
no, it's very clear.
Yep. To make the pitch a bit smaller, although in the Wingers game, a double penalty box is ideal, because but you see your groundsman will be complaining about the wear and tear in the busy area in the penalty box. So this is an alternative. Now, I would like to, I hope I'm not going on too long, but I'd like to ask you, what reasons are there? How many reasons are there for substituting a player? Now,
I think this would be, if we could do that, just using the chat function, guys. If you've got, what would be your reasons for substituting a player? And use the chat function, and we'll have a wee look at some of the answers and see if there's some of the ones that we came up with. If you use the chat function, anybody listening could type in any reason for making a substitution, any reason at all. Give you a couple of minutes for that.
Why would you substitute a player? It's a very important issue, I think, particularly at the high level, because there are now more substitutes in the World Cup. There are more on the bench than there are on the pitch. Now, you've got a problem there. You've got a management problem, and you've a substitution problem. And there must be a policy so that they know exactly what to do if they're substituted. So can you think of the reasons for substitution, and just note a few, and we'll see how we go on.
Craig, some of the coaches now, I know one coach in Italy, as soon as you get a yellow card, yes, 5, 6, 7 minutes after that, 10 minutes the most, he substitutes the player, because they're afraid that he gets another one and he's out of the game. So
Tony, you're ahead of me, because that's one of the reasons for that's one of the reasons I've got, and I've got a handful. I've got a lot of reasons. You'll be amazed how many reasons we've got for substituting a player, because I asked professional players, senior Premier League players in England, I said to them, can you tell me how many reasons there are for getting substituted? And that give me a number. And we're saying 3 or 4.
The first one. Poor performance.
Poor performance, that's right. There's a technical term in Scotland for that. Shite.
That's very technical. Very
That's a technical term.
very clear.
We use it in Scotland, I think, indiscriminately. If you're having a bad game, you're off. That's good. That poor. Who's saying that, Jamie? Aye, Jamie. That was good, Jamie. That's one reason. There are many more. Come on. Here we go. That's good.
Now Craig, you have seen there such body language.
That's Sanford Caravan. That's tactical. Well done. Colin Miller, injury. You would probably inflict the injury in some Celtic player. Christopher, different profile of play to see how opponents react. Fatigue, good. Good performance, good system change that suits the player a bit, good. Yellow card in danger of red, terrific, Christopher. You get a bonus for that. And maintaining the health if you've had a knock and you're not wanting them to. Good. These are great answers, guys. Chart function not working. Bonus off that. Sorry. Tired, cautions, and tactical. Jamie, Shannon, excellent.
Thanks, folks.
I'm going to tell you that I sometimes talk to the pro license coaches, and they're all coaches, and they're all pro license potential coaches, and I sometimes am asked to do a talk, and one of the things I ask them is the same question as I'm asking you: what reasons are there for substitution? And we got more from you in a shorter space of time than I could be half an hour extracting them. Now there's about 10 or 11 there. First is tactical, and we had that. Injury, we had that. Disobedience. Now, this is important because you've told the player to do something. You've told the player to mark a man, or you've told them that every ball is to be played short and not long, and every throw-in, and he doesn't do it, so you get him off. Risk of a second yellow card. You're on to get a red. You're on a yellow card. You're liable to get another one the way you're playing. Bring in a young player that's you want to blood him. You want to give him an opportunity. So your team's doing comfortably in the second half, and you stick the young boy on. You want to run the clock down, because I don't think they ever put as much time on as you lose for a substitution. So that's one reason. Slow the game down if you're ahead. And then acknowledgement for an individual. You've scored a hat-trick, the crowd's happy with you, and you're feeling happy with yourself. And I think you as the coach can say, well, I'm going to give him credit for that. So, and he'll get a personal ovation as off he goes. Poor performance, that's the word, the technical word, shite. Some penalty taker. This was one that I found. This was Van Gaal, if you remember. He changed his penalty taker because he felt he had a better one on the bench, and it didn't work in that occasion. Now the same, no, maybe Van Gaal was the one who changed the goalkeeper, and it was someone else who changed the penalty taker because it was going to a penalty shootout, and you have a penalty expert on the bench, so you get one for the last few minutes. The goalkeeper, it didn't work for Van Gaal, that one. Squad bonus. This is interesting. Some clubs, if you're on the bench, no matter if you come on the pitch, if you're on the bench, you get a half bonus. Some clubs, if you're on the bench, no matter if you come on, you get a full bonus. And, you know, I've been in various situations with clubs, and where it was a case in one of the clubs I worked for, you had to go on to get the full bonus. And I remember as we were winning comfortably 3-0, 10 minutes to go. My colleague was Archie Knox. I said, Archie, we'll put the young lads on. No, they might. I said, they'll never score a goal. Anyway, we put 3 young players on, and that doubled that went from half a bonus to a full bonus. And you would have thought you'd given them a lottery win. They were so delighted to get on the pitch. And the other one is you get sometimes you get negative response to a player from the crowd, and it's usually a player that is how can I put it, a good passer of the ball, and he's misplaced a couple of passes. You will never get a negative response from the crowd for a guy that gets crashing into tackles and booting opposition and fighting and snorting and But if your player is a talented player and he wants to pick out an accurate pass all the time, and he tries the accurate pass, and sometimes it's intercepted and it doesn't work, the crowd can get a bit. And I think for his sake and for the sake of the whole team, I think it's a good idea for the coach to remove him off.
Yeah,
So
Craig,
these are the-
have you ever had a situation where you wanted to substitute somebody, but he refuses to come off?
No, I'm lucky. I've seen it. I've seen that situation.
Yep.
But I'm very fortunate I haven't ever been in that situation. And don't ask me what I would have done. Just, you know what I would say to you, it's very important, I think, for coaches. The bigger the star, the more high profile the player is. You know, for example, I was on the bench and when working with the team when Kenny Dalglish was in the Scottish team. And when Graham Souness was in the Scottish team, these guys, they were big star players. And what I found with them is that they are more responsive than a young whippersnapper that thinks he knows everything. They will thank you and they'll nod their head. And I remember saying to Kenny, and I think he got about 102 caps, and Andy Rocks was the manager, and he said, "Have you anything to say, Craig?" I said, "Yeah, that second half, Kenny, was the way I expected from you the whole game, and you were excellent in the second half." And he looked at me in the eye and he said, "Thank you." Now, the big stars, in my experience, the bigger the star, the more important, the easier he is to handle, and the more responsive he is. It's the guy that's a couple of caps that thinks he's Ronaldo, that he's got to be, I'll not mention any names, but he's got to be kept suppressed. And Colin Miller, who's listening, Colin knows who I'm talking about, I think. We know one or two of them like that. But normally, the good stars, the good players, the important ones, the top ones. Now, I'll give you a substitution one. Before we played in the World Cup in France, we were invited to play a friendly over in France because France hadn't to qualify because they were the host country. It's the same as just now Qatar, but the French are the host country, so they try and get a nice easy friendly. We'll invite Scotland over. So we agreed to go over to play as long as it was one of the venues that we were going to use in the World Cup. So we went to St Etienne. And now I'll go ahead of myself here. That French team that we played, they won the World Cup. 2 months later, they won it. Well, we didn't know that they were going to win it when we were playing. So we're playing them, and I looked at their team, and I said we had a boy, Burley, Craig Burley from Chelsea, and I said, "Burley, your job is number 10. That number 10's got to get the heaviest smash. You've got to deal with him and make sure he doesn't get a kick at the ball. And if he gets a kick at the ball, you'll be sitting on the bench with us. Do you understand?" And the big Burley, he nodded, he said. So the game started, 3 minutes played, and what a tackle on number 10. And I said to Burley at the time, "His name is Zidane. I just want you to sort him out." So he whacked him. It was a horrendous tackle. And I thought, that's an ordering off. Well, the wee referee was Italian, and he spoke pidgin English, and he said, "You were a bit late, number 8. And of course, Burley says, "I got as early as I could." He says, your name. And he said, "Craig Burley." So he wrote the name, and he gave a yellow card, which was much to our relief. And McCoist, one of the subs, Ali McCoist, is sitting. McCoy shouts on to Burley, because Burley had no teeth at all in the front of his face, because he had false teeth. And he says, "Burley, one more tackle like that, you'll be joining your teeth in the dressing room." He said to me. But that was the first of it. But then losing 1-0 at half time, they're 1-up. And just after half time, I decided to make a substitution. So I said to McCoist, "Ali," I said, "warm up." And he had a big smile, not before time, but a niceness, no nastiness. And while he's warming up, Gordon Jury, whom I was going to take off, scored a wonderful goal for Scotland, right into the roof of the French net from outside the penalty box. So I think all the coaches will understand this. When the guy has scored, the next time he shoots, the goal's twice the size. He can't miss, you know, because he's feeling so confident. So I thought, I'm making a mistake taking Jury off. So I'll just leave him for a minute. So I said to Ali McCoy, I says, Ali, we'll just leave it meantime. We'll leave it meantime. And Ali shook his head and he says, Jury, 1 goal in 6 years, eh? Prolific. Prolific. He says, 1 goal in 6 years. But what I'm saying is the attitude of your players, and in fact, you know, the big name players I've found has always been very, very favourable and very cooperative. It's the wee guy with 2 or 3 caps that is the problem.
Yeah.
If I'm allowed, if I've got a minute longer, if I'm allowed
All the time you want, Craig.
to say to you that in Scotland we've had so many projects to try and improve football. Now, I know you're doing it in Canada, and I think you're doing it very, very well. But in Scotland, we've had things like Mark Votti come over he was co-opted from the Dutch FA. He came over, a performance strategy he was to give us. Then Rinus Michels, very good, came over and gave us some talks. We had who were the others? One of the Henry McLeish, a government minister, wrote a report on the development of the game. And currently they've got what they call a Project Brave. There's so many different projects. And yet, I've got to say, and this applies to Canada because I'm so excited for you that you know who I'm supporting at the World Cup. And the point I'm making is this, that I heard the best coach the British Lions in rugby had over the last few decades, a wonderful speaker, and he was the England rugby coach. And I heard him saying that the development of the game of rugby depends entirely on the performance and results of the national team. You can spend a fortune in all their fancy development programs. You can build fancy small training areas. But if the national team isn't doing well, people do lose interest and they're not at all interested. So I feel very strongly that you've knocked it off here because you're going and you're getting high profile against Belgium, and then you're playing Croatia, and then you're playing Morocco. And how lucky are the people in Canada to be allowed to watch their national team playing at that level of football? I mean, I've been at 5 major tournaments with Scotland, and I know that the hype at a major tournament, 3 World Cups I was at, and 2 European Championships. Now, the World Cup is sky high in terms of profile. So I think, folks, in the NSCAC, you're very fortunate because you've got role models coming through that national team. You've got the coaches with the national team, and you've got former coaches. And I'm joking about Colin, former captain of Canada and coach as well. An absolutely brilliant operator when I was at Derby County. You couldn't get a better coach anywhere on the planet than Colin Miller. And Colin's one of your folks there. So if he can encourage the Canadian national team to get some results, it'll be great because every kid will want a replica strip, want a Canadian strip, they'll want to play, they'll want to go on a course, and football will just take off even more than it is at the moment. So I feel strongly about that. Maybe the last thing I should say to you is that my favourite quote, you know, you've heard them all, the quotes in football, you've heard "you'll never walk alone" and things like that. But there was a lovely wee guy who used to come on courses when I went on football courses, and he was Bobby Robson's pal, the late Bobby Robson. He was called Joe Mirmovich, and Joe was the coach of Israel. And Bobby used to say, "Joe, tell us what your theme is. Tell us what it's all about." And there's what he said, "Joe, 1 goal more." He said, "That's all it's about, 1 goal more." And when you think about it, that was Joe Mirmovich, the coach of the Israel national team. And I think all we're looking for, every one of us as coaches, every game, all we want is 1 goal more, and we'll be happy. Thanks, I've gone on a wee bit long-windedly, but I've thoroughly enjoyed being with you. I hope you've understood something that I've said, and I'll be very happy if anybody wants to ask a question or write a question.
We have some questions here, Tony, if you want me to just...
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny, please.
We got Kerry and Akram Molaka. Thanks for the presentation, Coach. Great to hear you. I got my senior A license from you with the Scottish FA in 1995. Largs. Just want to say hello from Southwest Florida, and had the opportunity to see you visiting Derby County FC. Hope to hear you in the future and see you again. Thanks, Coach Brown. Sincerely, Akram Malaka.
What's his name? What's the chap's name?
Akram Malaka, M-O-L-A-K-A.
Right, Akram. Thank him very much indeed, Akram.
Then we have a question from Steve Payne. Hi, Craig. You have spoken before, Steve Payne here in Canada, who did pro license with Irish FA. Was on a webinar with the Irish FA on Monday, during which a presenter said, if you get your players in the right frame of mind, the payoff is unbelievable as far as performance is concerned. Love to hear your views on this.
Yeah, views are quite explicit. He's absolutely right. What his statement makes great sense, and we're a bit concerned about the Irish because they came over and beat our women's team in the World Cup qualifying match yesterday, and the Irish, the courses in Ireland, as you said, I've been over working on them, and they are absolutely outstanding. The coaches in Scotland, well, we always think are the best, but I've got to concede that a lot of players, high-profile players, go to Ireland and do their course, and they get an A licence or a UEFA A and a pro licence in Ireland, and they all come back saying how very, very good it is. I think we've got to acknowledge that we're not the only country that's trying to do it properly.
Yeah.
Great. Colin Miller says check is in the mail, Craig.
Tell him that's okay, but tell him he'll need it to pay the bet he had on Rangers last night.
David Beveridge says, hi, Mr. Brown, great talk.
Colin can take it. That's one good thing about him. You know, you can joke with him and you can take it, although he's very much a Rangers supporter, as we know, and a very good player over there too at Rangers. And he was a manager of my hometown team, Hamilton. So I've got a very, very great deal of affection for Colin.
Jeffrey Strauch says, many thanks, Craig. As informative, enjoyable as ever. All the best to everyone. Graham Murrison, thanks to all for this content. Learned a lot in such a short time from Graham in Canada. And Christopher Harrington, Craig, you are a gentleman and coach of your stature. Great to take the time to talk to us, and thank you. So I guess on behalf of the National Soccer Coach Association of Canada, I'd like to thank you, Craig, for participating in this and giving us your time. And hopefully we'll see you again, and best of luck in all your endeavors. And again, thanks very much. Tony?
Yeah, Craig, I mean, thank you on behalf of everybody. I mean, I could sit here and listen to you all day. Your stories, your knowledge, it's unbelievable. And hopefully we will have you on again if you wish, if you have time, or maybe we'll bring you over here one day. Hopefully next year, John, we can work on that. And if you're willing to do that, and you can meet all your fans here as well.
Yeah, it'd be very nice because the response from Canada is always fantastic. I really, I've said it 3 times already how envious I am that your team's going to Qatar, and they've got brilliant games to play. Really, and these will be high-profile games. They'll be all over the media, and I'm just dearly hoping that Canada can make a success of it, and I'm sure they will.
Well, we hope so too, Craig. Thank you again very, very much. It's been a pleasure, it's been an honor, and we hope to see you again. We will see you again.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, John.